Russian propaganda is really working overtime to spin the fact that Ukraine is getting first-rate NATO main battle tanks, while Russia is still struggling to get body armor for its troops. What exactly do Russians behind the curtain say about the situation? Well, thankfully, insight from Ukraine and Russia has us covered with more interceptions. And as always, guys, the guy's channel is great. Definitely go out there, give him a like on his videos. You can see I've joined the channel. And the reason, of course, is because as content creators that bring you news from the front lines, or rather about the conflict, YouTube is not a huge fan. They're trying to, sanitize their platform. So the more we can do to not depend on YouTube ad revenue, the better off we all are. For him, that's, of course, his YouTube channel membership. For me, it's the Patreon, where I take all the viral combat videos of the week, all the things that YouTube would never in a million years let me show you, and we break all of that down. We also, of course, put any videos that YouTube decides retroactively don't deserve to be on their platform. I move them over to the Patreon. Link to that's in the description. Link to his videos in the description. Okay, let's do it.
Tank Coalition made super great decision that might change everything in the next 6 months. Thank you to all of you who are supporting it. Secondly, Germany just gave Russian propaganda another reason to call this war a war against NATO and not against Ukraine, but it doesn't matter really, because it won't improve the state of the Russian army, and I doubt that it will boost their morale. Anyway, just listen to this intercepted phone call to find out what kind of supply Russian soldiers on the front get.
Okay, I want to point out he's actually pretty good on his timeline. Remember, just because the difference between announcing that we're providing these armored vehicles and tanks and actually getting them to put rounds into Russians it's a timeline that should be measured in months. Remember, not only do you need to get the tanks to Ukraine, but then you have to train the crews on those tanks. And honestly, as we've discussed, probably the US is going to train future trainers, right? They're going to have their soldiers learn from the Western armies, from Germany, from the United States, from the UK, how to operate their vehicles. They're probably going to have some mechanics come in and learn how to do many of what's called the 10, 20, and 30 level maintenance. And then those crews will become the trainers to train many more crews in these weapon systems. And I suspect that part of the provision of this initial batch of tanks, even though it's relatively small in the grand scheme of things, especially for the United States, right, who's produced 10,000 plus Abrams, 14 Abrams isn't that much. But you get these tanks, you get them not on the front lines, but you get them to the point where crews can get proficient, where logistic systems can get proficient, right? And you put them on things like training grounds, right? You get work on getting not just your specialists trained up, but you build this logistical tail. A tank on a training ground, it's going to have problems, need tread replacement. It's going to need different types of oil. It's going to need the electronics troubleshot. And all of those things are going to be exercises in building this logistics chain that reaches from Ukraine all the way back to the factories in the United States. So that is a 6-month-long process. But when it's done, you not only have tanks on the front lines, but you have a flow that allows more tanks, parts, crews to all keep them in the fight. If you've ventured into the comments section of any of my videos, you know that there is a lot of pro-Russian trolling, and it's really active from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Moscow time. In fact, it's public knowledge that Russia and other authoritarian states spend big on funding not just online propaganda, but many other types of online criminal activities too. From ransomware to database hacks, online criminals have never been more powerful and sophisticated. That's why I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. Right now, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount. You can get a 3-year subscription for just $199 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Time is running out, so get your deal by clicking the link in the description below. One Atlas VPN subscription protects unlimited devices. So from your laptop to your phone, Atlas VPN has you covered. Atlas VPN also blocks malicious links, ads, trackers, and notifies you when someone is trying to steal your data. Atlas VPN keeps your Google searches private and prevents online companies from tracking your activity. You'll be able to see price deals only available in select locations, like deals on airlines or hotels. You can also access geo-restricted content from services like Netflix or Hulu. Right now, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount. You can get a 3-year subscription for just $199 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Time is running out, so get your deal by clicking the link in the description below.
На Новый год свинью украсили в крас сине-желтый, короче.
А?
Свинью украсили в сине-желтый. И отправили бегать ее. Повесили флаг. Музыку на луночке включили гимн этот российский. И он, короче, весь Новый год пел.
Одни уже довеселились, отстреляли их.
Yep. Shout out to this dude. Okay, first off, I'm going to point out that when you're deployed, the things you do to entertain yourself are just, you look back and you're like, this is preposterous. My soldiers at one point had a contest to see who could shotgun the most Diet Dr. Peppers. Not making this up. Shake them up, stab them with like a knife or something, and then shotgun drink them. I think the record was like 6, but it produced a lot of vomiting. And the truth is that you have to give your soldiers outlets for to decompress, right? War is inherently stressful, and as a commander, you have to understand that. So you have to try to provide these outlets. This would include, for us, we actually bought set up an improvised volleyball court. We obviously had the internet set up with time where you could get on Facebook and Facebook was bigger back then. Get some email and talk to your family members. We also try to divert them towards more productive outlets like doing correspondence courses or even online college. There were some colleges that had online programs that were flexible enough where soldiers could take the classes even while being deployed. Though I want to point out that we actually we would change patrol schedules around soldiers with finals and exams. Because it's kind of messed up to encourage soldiers to do this positive outlet with one hand and then not enable them to actually accomplish it with the other. So, anything that was from harmless fun to productive outlets, you want to try to give soldiers a chance to blow off steam.
Да это их по-любому подстать.
Ну да, там было написано, что местный житель их подставил.
Interesting. This is a new spin, right? Before it was cell phones, and now it's locals disclosing these locations. As we've talked about in other videos, it's probably a combination. Something like a HIMARS, Ukraine is going to be very discerning with when they deploy that weapon system due to its limited ammunition. So they probably aren't going to rely on just one source of intelligence to tell them that they can launch this strike. They're going to want multiple confirmations. So probably a local or several locals reported that this was a barracks of Russian troops. Then they used cell phone data to triangulate that, yes, indeed, there was a large number of Russian phone numbers active in that area. Then they probably used satellite reconnaissance, which, believe it or not, even civilian satellite reconnaissance is now very high fidelity and very frequent. You can get satellite photos, I believe, less than 24 hours old, just purchased on the open market. Literally, I think you can do it. But the point is that they're going to get these multiple sources of intel before they commit to launching an action. So this is probably true, but not complete.
Ну вот видишь, и у нас все с телефонами тут ходят, ничего, все нормально.
Ну да, они в самой Макеевке были, еще и в ПТУ сидели. Конечно, там их подставили.
Это просто всю толпу в одно здание засунуть.
Никакого, Серый, никаким перемирием там не пахнет. Одни
So this is not specific. She may be referring to increasing rumors and movements on Russia's part to mobilize more and more troops. There was actually talk at one point of a general mobilization in Russia about 2 weeks ago. This would be like a general conscription instead of the like mini mobilization that they had. But that seems to have been delayed as Russia continually tries to get kind of its existing Ministry of Defense tightened up before they start bringing in lots of freshly mobilized conscripts. But she may also be taking about they send more and more is probably could also be a reference to Western equipment where they've scaled up providing things like armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, as well as things like main battle tanks.
отправляют, другие отправляют, третьи отправляют. Все им отправляют. Никакого перемирия там нету.
Ну да. Да у нас тоже вон везут. Такие ракеты привезли. Вообще кошмар. Смотреть на них страшно.
Да.
Там один выстрел, как, наверное, 3-метровая яма появляется.
Какая-то группа волонтеров за победу будут собирать гуманитарную помощь, посылки будут вам отправлять.
Yeah, this is pretty common. You see these volunteer groups collecting aid and sending it. When I was deployed, we also had it. And the irony was I actually had a number of like family and that would do these collections, and I got so much stuff that I didn't really need that I started telling them actually to send me school supplies so I could give it out to the Afghan kids. And that's what we would do. We would just go to schools and we just hand out notebooks and pens and paper and just anything that we thought that they were going to need. We would just give it away in the schools. And the truth is, do I suspect that a lot of it worked its way to the kids? Nah, I think a lot of it got diverted and resold, but that's, you know, it's honestly, that's okay too. I realize now that, you know, a big part of what keeps you safe in Afghanistan, as these guys found out, is that the locals should like you. And the more the locals like you, the more they're going to do what they can to prevent bad things from happening to you. Whether that's informing about IEDs and the like, or simply telling the Taliban who would want to place IEDs, say, hey, not here, man. And that can come in a lot of forms. For us, it was a lot of buying things from the local market. We bought stuff from the bazaar all the time. I didn't ban my soldiers from doing it as long as they did so in a way that wouldn't like disrupt the patrol. You know, every one of those shopkeepers that overcharged us for, you know, naan or hats or textiles, you know what? That was a shopkeeper that was crossing his fingers that we would be back. And he knew that, you know, I believe they knew that we were, if nothing else, there to enrich them and certainly not there to hurt them. And that probably kept us safe, you know, as much as body armor and armored vehicles and firepower.
Будут там.
Вот привезли
But these volunteer groups do make a difference.
нам 20 балаклав, носков, и все.
20
Before I show you another intercepted
20 balaclavas and socks. All right. Well, you know, that's something.
phone call, just listen to the reason why everyone assumes that Germany declared war on Russia.
And therefore, I've said already in the last days, yes, we have to do more to defend Ukraine. Yes, we have to do more also on tanks. But the most important and the crucial part is that we do it together and that we do not do the blame game in Europe because we are fighting a war against Russia and not against each other. Thank you.
Now let's listen to the next intercepted phone call. By the way, it's one-sided, so you're going to hear only what the wife says to her husband who's in Ukraine.
Yeah, listen. Yeah. One, you have to take things with an appropriate grain of salt. Her, you know, obviously, I think she's a German politician. Her English is excellent, truly, is outstanding. But it's worth noting that a lot of subtle individuation in language gets lost, even between, let's say, American English and British English, a truck versus a lorry, for example. But the phrasing of things like this is a war. And remember, in the US English, right, we'll say things like, oh, there's a war on poverty, or we'll even talk about, wow, that fight was a war, or a football team can go to war. And we'll sort of throw around those terms with the understanding that it's not a literal shooting war. And sometimes you get stuff like that, especially a quote taken out of context, right? And it can it's rife for the internet. Whatever you're predisposed to believe, you're going to take it and run with it. And it's especially bad when you're talking about language barriers, translation barriers, cultural barriers. It's one of the things to be cognizant of if you see something ever online where you think to yourself, wow, this is preposterous. I can't conceive of someone saying or doing these things. Chances are a person isn't usually irrational. So there's probably a context that would make it make sense. The classic meme of, who knows what happens in the 30 seconds before the viral video.
Let's go.
Везде им похрен на людей. Это везде, это не только тут. Им везде похрен на людей. Это просто жесть. Никому никто не нужен. Они тоже тут в посадке жили. Ни домика, ни ничего. Вот как приехали, тут, они находятся то там, а сейчас вот тут в посадке.
Damn, just under a windbreak, under an open sky sounds horrifying. Now, I'll say the U.S. Army issued 3-layered sleeping bag. I have camped in some pretty cold conditions in just that. But even I put up a tarp over it. But something tells me Russia, who was starting to make its mobilized soldiers bring their own sleeping bags, almost certainly aren't with this issued, Gore-Tex bivy cover that's rated down to -15. Instead, they're probably getting a generously rated Amazon grade sleeping bag that's rated to 20, but really your life is probably in danger if you sleep in it below 32 degrees. If you've done any backpacking, you know how dangerous it can be to be in the winter and unsheltered.
Под чистым небом, коробочек вот это, с того, что стреляет, видно себе домик. Ну это вообще.
Okay, she may not understand. We've seen in other footage where empty ammunition crates are used as construction material to help build up and shore up and form a sort of frame for a fighting position, a fully entrenched fighting position. And we've also seen that Russia has become wise in many cases to Ukraine's drone warfare. And so they are prioritizing constructing overhead cover that will block out dropped grenades and artillery rounds.
Это везде потратить на всех. Я говорю, еще больше, мне кажется, еще большую роль вот это начальство поиграет. Ну, они вчера приезжали, что-то я оставил, они ничего, что ты не подошел и не спросил.
Oh, she's mad at him. Probably, it sounds almost like he is complaining, but then not doing anything about it. And we've talked about this too a little bit when, when any human being, and a lot of actually animals, lose agency, their ability to influence their circumstances in any way. Once they believe that, they practice what's called learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is the idea that even that you internalize this belief that you are unable to change your circumstances. And as a result, you no longer waste energy trying to change your circumstances. And so when you have those situations, what often will happen is when things change and you are able to affect your surroundings, you no longer do so because you don't understand that things have changed. The classic example is they kept a dog in in an electric fence basically, and everywhere, I think it was like blue, the dog could walk and play, and everywhere red, it couldn't go. And the dog would learn that, hey, I can't walk in the red. Well, one day they turned off the electric fence, and the dog still remained terrified of the red. It refused to even attempt to investigate whether or not was free. It had learned to be helpless. And that's probably what she's yelling at him for. She's saying, hey, you complain about your circumstances, but the commanders were just there. They checked on you yesterday. And why didn't you ask them, hey, I need this, I need that?
А что мне положено? Ни специалиста у меня нету. Вы ехали, почему вы мне ни воды не привезли? Я получаю, мне положено. А положено еще на меня сигареты. Я это прекрасно знаю. Мне положена хавка вся.
Gotta love the supposed though. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. Like, yeah, telling people what they're supposed to do, most of the time, they know it and they're not doing it. And the question is, are they not doing it because they're lazy? In which case, confronting them may actually get some results, or are they not doing it because they can't? And if so, harassing them just doesn't help you. But remember, in the world of the military, the commander is the boss of you. You aren't the boss of the commander. So the supposeds don't carry as much weight unless you can find a way to give it teeth.
Вы ни круг не привезли, ни хрена. Вы это обязаны, это вы получаете. Где вы его деваете?
Again, thank you all for supporting Ukraine, for supporting my channel. Thank you for all of your likes, comments, and subscriptions. I'll see you soon. If Russia won't get me with one of its missiles or drones, because for the last 2 days there have been more than 6 air raid sirens, I guess. So something is happening right now, you know. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Goodbye to all.
Yeah, again, hope he stays safe. I mean, I can tell you, I see a lot more pro-Russian trolls in my comments, which is a sign, of course, to me that my star continues to rise, right? Sometimes you have to be judged by your haters. And when your haters are a state-backed propaganda wing, you know you're doing something right. So I'm sure Insight has the same problems, though, you know, unlike me, he is in a country occupied by Russian forces. So I hope he's staying safe. I hope you guys check out his channel. And of course, if you're interested, join the Patreon to check out my exclusive videos, check out his membership, and I'll see all you guys in the next one.